Welcome to True Echo, where powerful stories meet real consequences. Today's story is a lesson in dignity, power, and justice. A black woman in a sleek black dress sat in first class, quietly reviewing financial reports. 5 minutes later, a flight attendant told her to leave her seat, not knowing she owned the entire airline. What followed shocked the nation. Stay until the end, because this story, it's about to take off. At 30,000 feet above Chicago, Olivia Bennett sat in seat 2A, legs crossed with practiced poise, her attention fixed on a glowing tablet. The quiet hum of the aircraft and the soft clink of ice in her coffee cup barely registered. The Wall Street Journal lay folded beside her, but her eyes were locked on the quarterly earnings report for Bennett Global, the conglomerate she'd built from scratch. Olivia Bennett wasn't just any passenger. At 45, she was one of the most powerful CEOs in America, a black woman who had shattered barriers and redefined boardrooms. Her success wasn't inherited. She earned it. Every meeting, every risk, every sleepless night had brought her here. And now, she was flying on Sky First Airlines, a luxury carrier she quietly acquired and restructured under Bennett Global's aviation division. Her name wasn't on the passenger manifest as CEO. She often flew incognito to monitor customer experience firsthand. But none of that mattered to Jessica Harris, a 26-year-old flight attendant with blonde hair, a tight bun, and a nervous energy she couldn't quite hide. With a clipboard in hand, she approached Olivia with a smile that looked more like an apology. "Excuse me, ma'am," Jessica said, leaning in slightly. "I'm afraid we'll need you to move to economy. This seat has been requested for a VIP client with a medical issue. Mr. Davidson." Olivia blinked. "Pardon?" Jessica's tone softened, but her words didn't change. "We're asking for your cooperation, ma'am. Mr. Davidson is one of our Platinum Elite members, and..." Olivia raised one manicured hand. Calmly. Controlled. "I purchased this seat 3 weeks ago. It's non-transferable. Show me medical documentation, and I'll move." Jessica's smile faltered. "We're not at liberty to share his private information, ma'am. Please just cooperate." The surrounding passengers perked up, a few phones began to rise, and the woman across the aisle, a millennial with sharp cheekbones and curiosity in her eyes, began quietly live streaming. Olivia slowly closed her tablet. "If this is not protocol, then I won't move. Not without proper reason." Jessica stiffened, clearly unprepared. She turned sharply and walked briskly toward the front, returning moments later with Brad Cooper, the lead flight attendant. Brad was tall, broad-shouldered, and carried himself with the authority of someone used to being right. He didn't smile when he approached Olivia. He didn't need to. His eyes did the talking, narrowed, assessing, unimpressed. "Ma'am," he said loudly enough for others to hear. "This is a final request. Mr. Davidson has absolute priority. You're holding up the cabin. And I'm requesting your full name and employee ID so I can document this." Olivia reached for a slim leather notebook from her handbag. "Surely that's within my right." Brad scoffed. "Brad Cooper. ID 47,932. And this is Jessica Harris, ID 62,785. File whatever you want." Click. Sarah Mitchell, the live streaming passenger, zoomed in. And just like that, the sky shook, not outside the window, but inside that cabin. What Brad and Jessica didn't know. The woman they were humiliating wasn't a disgruntled traveler. She was their boss. And she was just getting started. John Davidson appeared before Olivia like he was stepping onto a red carpet. He wore entitlement like a tailored suit, probably because he was wearing one. His silver hair was slicked back, and his expensive cologne arrived a second before he did. "Is there a problem here?" he asked Brad, not even glancing at Olivia. "This is taking far too long." Brad straightened like a soldier before a general. We're resolving it now, sir. Miss Bennett is being uncooperative. Davidson finally turned to Olivia, his eyes scanning her from heels to hair with thinly veiled disdain. I thought this airline had higher standards. Why is she still here? She has a valid boarding pass, Olivia replied, voice calm. And you have yet to show any valid documentation. Davidson's smile twisted. Documentation? This isn't court, sweetheart. This is business. You give way when someone more important walks in. The air turned electric. A passenger audibly gasped. Sarah Mitchell's live stream exploded with real-time comments. Did he just call her sweetheart? This man is asking to be cancelled. Protect this queen in seat 2A. Jessica stepped forward nervously. Miss Bennett, please. It's just a seat. No, Olivia said, rising slowly. Her black blazer flowed behind her like a cape. It's never just a seat. It's about how you treat people when you think they're powerless. And I'm not powerless. Her words dropped like stones into a silent room. But Olivia did not yell. She didn't plead. She didn't cry. She simply retrieved her laptop from the seatback pocket, gathered her belongings, and looked Brad in the eye. I'll move. But not because you've earned it. I'll move because there are bigger stages to handle this on, ones that don't have seat numbers. She turned and walked back toward economy, the aisle parting like the Red Sea. Phones filmed. Eyes followed. Davidson chuckled, settling smugly into 2A and calling for champagne. Finally. Sarah Mitchell was still live streaming. You all saw that. I don't know who that woman is, but she handled this with more grace than I could have. And it was wrong. So wrong. Meanwhile, Olivia took her new seat, 34D, deep in coach, and opened her laptop. Her fingers moved fast. The screen flashed with the Sky First Airlines executive portal. She logged in. Employee records, Brad Cooper. Jessica Harris. Policy violations, anti-discrimination. Evidence upload, cabin footage, live stream, witness report. Email sent, legal team, emergency. CEO disrespected mid-flight. Prepare boardroom. On landing, full review. Her face remained composed. But her eyes? Unblinking fire. From seat 34D, Olivia Bennett, CEO, founder, and owner of Sky First Airlines, had just initiated a corporate purge. And they had no idea who they were dealing with. By the time the plane landed at LAX, Olivia's phone had already lit up with over 24 notifications. Legal, emergency review scheduled. Full board briefed. Comms, incident going viral. Footage from seat 3B has 2.3 million views in under 90 minutes. Public relations, CNN, MSNBC, and the Post have reached out. Statement. Executive Assistant, Gate 47, Conference Room 5, prepped. Carlos Rivera will meet you. As the aircraft taxied, Olivia calmly shut her laptop and placed it into her leather bag. Around her, whispers swirled. Several passengers in economy now recognized her from the viral clip. Some offered apologetic glances. Others simply watched, stunned. She didn't flinch. She had no time for pity. Brad and Jessica, meanwhile, stood near the exit door in full uniform, oblivious to the storm they were walking into. Jessica kept glancing nervously at her phone. Brad looked annoyed, convinced this was just a case of social media overreacting. They didn't notice Olivia stepping off the plane just behind them. Carlos Rivera, the LAX ground operations manager, was waiting with a clipboard and an anxious expression. When Olivia approached, he extended his hand, then paused in shock as he glanced at her business card. Chairwoman and CEO. Sky First Airlines. Bennett Global. He went pale. Ms. Bennett, he stammered. I had no idea. Please, accept my deepest apologies. If I'd known. Olivia's voice cut through the apology like a scalpel. I assume the crew has been debriefed. They're being escorted to conference room 5 as we speak. Your executive and legal teams are waiting. She nodded once, crisply. Let's begin. Minutes later, Jessica and Brad walked into the sleek, glass-walled conference room. Olivia sat at the head of the long walnut table, flanked by corporate attorneys and C-suite executives. Her presence filled the room like gravity. Brad blinked. Wait, you're the CEO. Jessica's mouth opened, but no words came. Sit, Olivia said quietly. Across the table, Sky First's chief counsel, Rebecca Parker, cool, severe, and armed with a thick dossier, clicked a pen. I've reviewed the video evidence, she said. Your actions, Mr. Cooper and Ms. Harris, constitute a violation of federal anti-discrimination law, breach of Sky First policy, and reputational damage to the corporation. Do you deny it? Brad sputtered. This was a misunderstanding. We were following protocol. The man, Davidson, he insisted he had a medical need. And yet, Rebecca replied icily, no medical documentation was produced, and Ms. Bennett was publicly humiliated and removed from her seat. A seat she purchased. The one she built. Jessica's eyes brimmed with tears. I didn't know, she whispered. I didn't know who she was. That's the problem, Olivia said softly, but her words cracked like thunder. You thought I had to be someone important to deserve respect. A heavy silence fell. Then Olivia opened the floor-to-ceiling blinds behind her, revealing the Los Angeles skyline and dozens of planes taking off into the golden light. She didn't look at the view. She looked straight at them. You forgot what Sky First stands for, she said. But I haven't. And neither has the public. As of this morning, #SkyFirstRacism is trending nationwide. You've endangered this company, not just our stock, not just our brand, but our integrity. Brad's shoulders sagged. Jessica silently wept. You are both terminated effective immediately, Olivia announced. Security will escort you out after this meeting. Your names and actions will be reported to the FAA. And you will never work in commercial aviation again. Jessica crumbled into her chair. Brad slumped in stunned silence. And then Olivia turned her gaze to the third person in the room. John Davidson. Still dressed in his $1,000 suit. Still defiant. Mr. Davidson, Olivia said. Your behavior on board Flight 1278 was not only appalling, it was racist, demeaning, and criminally entitled. You've violated our passenger conduct policy and federal discrimination law. You can't ban me, Davidson scoffed. I'm a shareholder. I fly Sky First almost every week. Not anymore, she said. You are permanently banned from all Sky First flights. Your account is suspended. Your shares will be reviewed for breach of ethics and may be forcefully repurchased per our shareholder code. His jaw dropped. You'll regret this, Davidson hissed. Olivia leaned forward, voice cold as winter. No, Mr. Davidson. You will. The door slammed shut behind John Davidson as he stormed out of the conference room, rage flaring in his eyes and fists clenched. But Olivia Bennett didn't flinch. She simply turned toward the legal team and said, file everything. Let the FAA and Corporate Ethics Board handle the rest. I'm not just sending a message. I'm building a new standard. Moments later, she walked toward Gate 47 where a crowd had already gathered. The terminal was electric. Word had spread fast that the woman who had been humiliated in first class wasn't just a passenger, she was the CEO of the very airline they were flying. Olivia's presence alone commanded the hush that fell over the group as she stepped up to a small podium near the gate counter. Cameras flashed. Phones streamed. Sarah Mitchell stood in the front row, still recording, now with nearly 800,000 live viewers and over 15 million total plays across her social accounts. She mouthed the words, "Thank you," as Olivia met her eyes. Olivia took a breath and began. "First, I want to thank all of you who bore witness to what happened on Flight 1278. And especially to the young woman who shared the truth so bravely," she said, nodding toward Sarah. "My name is Olivia Bennett. I am the CEO of Sky First Airlines and chairwoman of Bennett Global." Gasps rippled through the crowd. What you witnessed was not just poor customer service. It was targeted bias. Discrimination. And it happened at 30,000 feet in an aircraft wearing my name. That is unacceptable, not just to me as a leader, but as a human being. A wave of quiet murmurs flowed through the terminal, heads nodding in agreement. This airline, Olivia continued, was founded on the belief that luxury should not come at the cost of dignity. That no matter your skin color, income level, or background, when you step aboard one of our planes, you are valued, respected, protected. Her voice, steady and measured, rang with the clarity of truth. 2 flight attendants have now been terminated. 1 passenger has been permanently banned. And I will be holding a press conference tomorrow to announce sweeping reforms that ensure this never happens again. From behind her, a soft applause began. Then louder. Soon, the entire gate erupted in cheers. Some passengers cried. Others clapped until their hands stung. Olivia simply nodded once, turned, and walked away with quiet determination. That night, in a marble-glass conference hall at Sky First's LA headquarters, Olivia addressed the full board of directors in an emergency session. The boardroom buzzed with tension. Executives whispered about media backlash. Stock futures were volatile. Shareholder representatives demanded answers. Olivia stood tall and began her presentation. What happened today was a failure of culture. One that starts at the top, with us. If we do not lead with vision, empathy, and integrity, then this brand means nothing. She turned to a giant screen, displaying live footage of the trending hashtags. Hashtag SkyFirstRacism, hashtag Justice for Olivia, hashtag Fire the Crew, and now, hashtag Lead Like Olivia. Our values were tested in the most public way possible. And now we respond. Not with spin. With truth. With action. She unveiled the following reforms. Real-time in-flight discrimination reporting accessible from every seat, screen and app. Mandatory annual diversity and anti-bias training for all employees, including executives. An independent civil rights advisory panel to audit airline practices. A $500,000 annual scholarship fund to support young students of color entering aviation. This is not about image repair, she said. This is about restoring the soul of our company. There were no objections. Only silence. Respectful. Awed. And unanimous approval. The next morning, under the brilliant Californian sun, Olivia stood before a massive media podium outside Sky First Airlines Los Angeles headquarters. A sea of reporters, television crews, influencers, and advocacy groups gathered. The moment had captured the country's attention. Camera shutters clicked like rainfall as Olivia adjusted the mic. Her poise was effortless. Her voice rang out clear and strong. Yesterday, I was publicly removed from a first-class seat I purchased, not because of a clerical error, not due to any medical emergency, but because of the assumption that I did not belong there. She paused, letting the silence carry weight. I'm a black woman. I'm the CEO of this airline. And what happened to me happens to countless others who don't have the privilege of a camera, a title, or a platform. Gasps and murmurs rippled through the crowd. This is not a story about me. This is a story about power, about perception, and about what happens when we fail to train, to see, and to correct injustice. Let me make it absolutely clear, Sky First Airlines does not, and will never, tolerate discrimination in any form. Olivia then outlined the sweeping changes passed by the board just hours earlier. Each reform drew cheers from the growing crowd and praise from the live chat feeds online. Mandatory bias and sensitivity training, enforced annually. A new anti-discrimination in-flight reporting system, launching within 30 days. A full review of passenger conduct policies, with consequences for violators. And the cornerstone, the Sky First Diversity in Aviation Scholarship, a $500,000 fund to support marginalized students training for careers in aviation. Justice, she said, is not reactive. It must be built into the structure of every system we create. And today, we rebuild. The press conference was broadcast live on national television. Within the hour, Delta, American Airlines, and United each released statements praising Sky First's transparency and pledging internal reviews of their own procedures. Meanwhile, back in New York, John Davidson sat in his penthouse office, watching Olivia's speech on 4 different monitors. His jaw clenched as social media lit up with his name, not in praise, but fury. His publicist called, voice strained. "We're hemorrhaging clients. Sponsors are pulling out. You need to respond." So Davidson did something he never thought he'd have to, he issued a televised public apology. "I offer my deepest regrets to Ms. Olivia Bennett and to the passengers aboard Flight 1278. My actions and words were wrong. I am committed to attending bias training and learning from this failure." But it was too late. Shareholders distanced themselves. Brand partnerships collapsed. His name, once associated with privilege and prestige, was now shorthand for arrogance and racial bias. Across the country, Jessica Harris sat alone in her apartment, refreshing her email inbox in vain. No job offers. No responses. Her phone buzzed constantly, not with sympathy, but with condemnation. And then, she got an email. From Sky First Airlines. Subject, Redemption Opportunity. The message was brief. You are invited to a specialized anti-bias rehabilitation program. This is not a promise of employment. This is a test of your willingness to grow. One chance. Take it, or leave it. She stared at the screen, hands shaking, tears rising. Then she clicked accept. Even Brad Cooper, once too proud to admit fault, quietly enrolled 2 days later. 3 weeks later, Olivia Bennett stood in a quiet glass-walled observatory overlooking Sky First Airlines' main training facility in Atlanta. Below her, Jessica Harris and Brad Cooper sat in folding chairs among a diverse group of new trainees and retraining employees. They weren't wearing uniforms now, just plain clothes, notebooks in hand, faces taut with humility. A civil rights instructor paced before them, pointing to projected images of past discrimination cases in aviation history. The room was silent. Absorbing. Learning. Behind her, Olivia's assistant approached quietly. They both showed up on time. They've participated fully. No complaints. No excuses. Olivia didn't respond immediately. She simply watched Jessica nod solemnly at a comment from a black veteran flight attendant who spoke about unconscious bias. After a moment, she spoke. Let them finish the full course. Then we'll evaluate. But if they're truly committed, I want them giving talks to new hires. Not just as warning, but as witnesses. Her assistant nodded. Elsewhere, Sarah Mitchell, the young woman who live-streamed the incident, was having a very different day. She stood in front of a gleaming Sky First jet, now wearing a crisp new Navy uniform. She'd graduated top of her class from the airline's new Diversity Forward Flight Attendant program, a program Olivia had launched using the same fund she promised at the press conference. Sarah wasn't just staff now. She was a voice within the airline's Internal Equity Council. She had already been featured in Forbes Women and Jet Set Weekly. I never planned this, she said during an interview. I was just filming what I knew felt wrong. But Ms. Bennett didn't just fight back, she brought us with her. She didn't close the door. She opened it wider. That evening, Olivia received a letter from Sarah. Inside was a photo, the very seat in economy where Olivia had been forced to sit. On the back, Sarah had written, "You may have sat here in silence, but from here, you lifted an entire industry." Olivia set the photo on her office desk and smiled, not the kind of smile one gives in victory, but the kind that comes with knowing your work is far from over, yet finally beginning to bear fruit. As her phone buzzed with another update, FAA had officially endorsed SkyFirst's new anti-discrimination policies. Olivia opened her window and looked out at the runway. Dozens of planes glided under the sunset. And each one, she now knew, carried not just passengers and luggage, but a promise. 6 months had passed since Flight 1278. The world had moved forward, as it always does. Headlines faded. Hashtags slowed. But what didn't fade, what couldn't, was the ripple Olivia Bennett had created in one decisive moment at 30,000 feet. She now stood before a full auditorium at Harvard Business School, where she'd been invited to give a keynote address. The stage lights glowed soft against her deep blue blazer. Her presence, unshakable. The students leaned forward, notebooks open, pens ready. Cameras rolled, live streams ran, and thousands tuned in. "I was mistaken for someone less important than a wealthy passenger," she began. "I was told to give up my seat, my space, my dignity. But I didn't yell. I didn't demand. I simply let them make a choice they'd have to answer for." She paced slowly, letting each word settle into the bones of the room. "You see, power isn't always loud. Sometimes, it's quiet. Composed. Strategic. And the real question isn't what you do when someone disrespects you. It's what you build in the aftermath." The audience was frozen in silence, hanging on every word. Olivia then told the full story, every twist, every humiliation, every decision that followed. She spoke not of revenge, but of responsibility. She emphasized the new real-time discrimination reporting tools now installed on every SkyFirst flight. The quarterly civil rights audits. The diversity scholarships. The 2 employees, Jessica and Brad, who had returned to the company, not as crew, but as educators warning others not to follow their path. And she spoke of Sarah Mitchell, now one of SkyFirst's most recognized attendants, who had used her voice to spark a revolution. "When I stood up in first class, it wasn't just for me. It was for everyone who'd ever been told they didn't belong. For every young girl watching, every underrepresented traveler, every unseen hero." She paused, then smiled softly. That seat was never just about comfort. It was about recognition. The students rose to their feet, erupting into applause that echoed through the halls of the university and far beyond. Later that night, Olivia sat by her office window back in LA, watching the red blinking lights of planes climbing through the night sky. Her phone buzzed with updates, praise from the press, thank you messages from passengers, letters from students whose lives were changed by her scholarship. But the greatest reward was knowing she had not just fired a crew. She had changed the course of an industry. Forever. True echo conclusion and call to action. Olivia Bennett didn't scream. She didn't threaten. She acted with grace, and dismantled discrimination at 30,000 feet. Her story teaches us this. Power is not proven by status. It's proven by the courage to stand up when others expect you to sit down. If this story moved you, share it. Let others hear Olivia's name. Let them hear what real leadership looks like. Comment below with your thoughts. Have you ever faced injustice like this? Let's start a conversation. And if you want more powerful stories like this, true echoes of change, don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow us. Because at True Echo, we don't just tell stories. We amplify truth.